So I had a prepared talk, but I've been here all day and listening, and want to talk to you about some other stuff. What I was reminded of was a moment a few years ago when I met a founder of one of the social networks. It's in your phone right now, and he came up to me and he said, "Oh, Rushkoff, I'm worried about you." And I was like, "Why?" And he said, "Well, I've been reading all the stuff you've been writing about AI lately, and aren't you worried that when AI's in charge, that they're going to come for you?" And I was like, "No, I really hadn't thought about that." And he said, "Well, you know, I haven't written anything, I haven't posted anything online about AI because I don't want them to see it when they're in charge and then come after me." And I said, "Well, if you've been sort of systematically excising anything about AI from everything you're posting, don't you think that these super AIs are going to be smart enough to infer from your excisions how you feel about it?" And he just goes, "Oh, fuck." And what I realized, and this is what I keep hearing between the lines today, is that this tech bro was afraid of AI because he thought AI was going to do to him what he and his friends have been doing to us. And if they're modeling on his behavior, then of course they will. But the energy I keep hearing in so many of these panels is kind of like, and so I keep writing these things down. It's like, well, we're kind of want to function like an extractive monopoly, but we're afraid of these new extractive monopolies at the next level won't let us keep doing that. Right? So it's this almost reactionary impulse. Or I keep also hearing, it's our job to figure out how to deploy AI in our company. Since when is it your job to figure out how to deploy someone else's product in your company? That's their friggin' job. If they can't convince you to use it, then don't fucking use it. Christ. Or get all your employees working with it so they can all figure out how it helps them with their jobs. Again, it's like, so let the AI companies outsource their product development to you, right? No. That's called an externality. Don't absorb that. No, so what I'm seeing is, AI is a big thing. We all know it's a big thing. It's weird, right? Big things come, and big things kind of create wobble in the system. They create wobble. And the good thing about the wobble is it gives the little people a chance to do weird stuff, right? Like musicians to create platforms where they can actually start recouping some of the value of the music they create, right? It does that. But the powers that be, they lock down during the they look at the wobble as an opportunity to expand or further entrench their monopolies as quickly as possible. They resist the wobble. The companies that look like they're the fast-moving revolutionary companies are actually the most reactionary companies we've ever seen. They're the ones reaching back to feudalism, for Christ's sake. Right? Not even capitalism. Right? So you can look at these moments. I mean, it's sort of what I do as a professor dude, right? You can look at moments of history for where this has happened. The industrial age, which offered us marketplaces and peer-to-peer economy and local currencies. People were optimizing their time for leisure over accumulation because their money expired at the end of the day. The whole society was biased towards leisure. And what happened? What did we get really in the industrial age? We got the assembly line, which we know wasn't about making more stuff faster. It was about kind of devaluing the craft of the laborer, right? You don't need a real shoemaker on the assembly line. You need someone who can nail one piece of nail into the sole and pass it on to the next guy. And we got the dumbwaiter, right? What was the dumbwaiter for? Was that really for saving the enslaved people the effort of climbing up the stairs? No, the dumbwaiter was about sparing Thomas Jefferson and his dinner guests the indignity of seeing the slave huffing and puffing up the stairs. It was a way of either hiding labor or devaluing labor. That's what we did with the industrial age, which was to push the humans further down the food chain, right? To push them down, to de-skill them. The digital age, what did we get? Right? We thought, I was part of this kind of Mondo 2000 psychedelic, wonderful early San Francisco. We thought, oh, we're going to get new tools to realize the collective hallucination. But what did we do? We took the tools away from the people and used these tools on people in order to get them to behave more predictably. We turned the internet from a creative play space into a Skinner box of social control. Why? To preserve that kind of wired, long, boom capitalist economy. And now we get AI. And again, AI, oh, this could be cool, right? To partner with a new kind of intelligence and see where that goes. Maybe go a little crazy, maybe go have a little fun. But no, what do we do with it? Really? What is AI? What's really happening? Does AI really replace jobs? No, it just pushes labor further down the food chain. So instead of having 1,000 graphic artists making PowerPoints, we have 10,000 kids in Africa mining for cobalt. Or 100,000 women in the Philippines tagging all the data. As you know, the data doesn't tag itself. There's tons, every one of those clicks, there's tons of human beings doing all this work. They're just hidden, like the people from the dumbwaiter. Doesn't go away. Right, so when I hear the tech bros talking about, we gotta get to AGI, we gotta get all your money and all your companies subscribing to all our stuff so we can get to AGI, that's because they want to prevent us from actually competing with them. They want to get as much data and processors and nuclear power plants in their companies to prevent the actual AI renaissance from occurring. They want to maintain extractive monopolies. So the faster they go, right, and get all the government support and nuclear power plants, whatever they need, the harder it is. Right? Slowing it down actually lets 1,000 little AI companies start. The other reason they're being so reactionary is because they believe in the collapse. They believe in climate change and the end of the world. Those are the guys who believe it's all coming down. And if you believe it's all coming down, what do? You want to have as much money and as much land and as much tech and as much armies as possible to protect it all. So I'm looking at kind of two civilizational models here. One, the one we're in, is a pyramid model. That's what we've been in, you know, you can say for 2,000, you can say for longer, but certainly since the Renaissance, a pyramidal model where the value the values that people want, what we're optimized for in a pyramid, top-down economy, is the accumulation of stuff, right? Get lots of things. The alternative, the one we sort of saw in the late Middle Ages, the one we saw in the slacker beginning of the internet, and the one we kind of see maybe could happen now, is a peer-to-peer, lateral, horizontal economy, which is optimized for leisure. Right? There's no reason to collect all this stuff. What you want to do is make as much money as you need to have as much free time to do fun stuff as you can. I know it's a crazy idea, right? But the idea is you'd make money in order to have a fun life, right? Rather than just to protect yourself from all the other people you're competing with to get higher in the pyramid. So in the pyramid economy, our AI universe is dominated by the idea of having big stores of data. We got to get lots and lots of data and own all that data. In a peer-to-peer economy, we would be thinking, how do we build a data commons that we can all use? And what would that look like? Right? In the pyramidal AI society, we're using AI to average down, to get answers, fast answers to things. What's the average answer? And plug it in. It's like the industrial model. In a peer-to-peer economy, what are we looking for? Because we have diversity, we have distribution. We're looking to iterate with technology to yield novel outcomes. Right? What does that look like to take every answer and put it back in, and every answer and put it back in? Well, where's this going? Oh my gosh, you're exploring with rather than moving towards efficiency. You know, the easiest way to say it, I was just thinking this when we were talking this morning, the output of the pyramidal AI economy is a shitty Coke commercial that everybody hates, right? They did not read the room. The AI output of the peer-to-peer weird-ass Renaissance society is the first episode of South Park this year. And what's the difference, right? One is establishment, and the other one is punk. Right? AI, I truly believe this, AI is a punk opportunity. It's an opportunity to challenge underlying assumptions. The questions everyone's asking about AI are right, but the solutions they're going for are reactionary and old world and pyramid. So I was on with Jake Tapper, who was trying to get me upset about AI on one of the days when I didn't care about it. I'm like you, I go back and forth. One morning I wake up, oh my God, it's going to be the end of the world. On the other day, I'm like, who gives a fuck, right? This is AI, I don't really care, just let it go away. I'm just day to day. So this was one of the pre-interview was on a day I cared all about and was worried. And then when I actually did the interview, it was a day when I couldn't give a fuck. So he's trying to get me upset and about all the different things. And finally goes, oh, what about the unemployment problem, Rushkoff? And I said, well, what about the unemployment solution? Back to leisure. I don't want a job. I don't want a job. I want stuff. I want meaningful work. I want connection with other people. I don't need a job. Matter of fact, where did jobs come from? Jobs are a late Middle Age invention. It was a way to, we were all craftspeople working for ourselves. Then they came up with chartered monopolies, His Majesty's Royal Shoe Company. So now instead of being a shoemaker, I have to work at a company as an employee. That's when they put the clock on the tower of the medieval village to make it look like this had always been there, to naturalize something that was really strange. Right? Or, oh, look at schools. Oh, look at kids using AI in schools. We should be so upset about that. No, AIs are not fucking up schools. AIs are revealing that we fucked up school. Right? That we are having kids turn in papers like it's a job, and that you don't want to talk to them about it. Right? The paper is the beginning of the process, not the end, right? It's a way to organize their thinking. All this, right? So we can either use these as opportunities to challenge our underlying assumptions or use them as opportunities to reify the status quo, right? And what I keep trying to argue to people about AI is all of these visions, they're thinking so small. They're thinking small. It's bigger than this, right? The wet dream of the techno-capitalist now, I guess, is to kind of feed the Palantir authoritarian future of total control. Right? That's where we're going. You know, or right, we challenge the pyramid with kind of decentralized, collaborative laboratories, right? Places where we can play, places where's that thing like that they said, I didn't know, Worth. Places where we can, it's the slogan of Worth, think beyond wealth. Whoa, what would that be, right? To take AI out of that context of wealth. Think beyond wealth, right? The dudes I'm talking about believe in collapse. They're sure that's where it's going. The people building the platforms we're trying to use believe the world is ending and are building businesses to support their escape from the rest of us. But they believe that there's an escape hatch for one or maybe a couple of thousand people. They're going to go rise from the chrysalis of matter as pure consciousness, become their robot clones, whatever it is, get to Mars. Right? What our challenge to them is to get them to think bigger. You know, rather than being a super duper uber rich person in a horrible world, what about being a really wealthy person in a great world? I know that's a challenge. But the way to do, there are ways to do that. And I genuinely believe the way in which we deploy AI in our lives and in our companies matters. Think about how to do it. And if you don't know, ask me, I'll tell you. How to do decentralized AI. How do you do AI that's off the grid? How do you use AI in an iterative way rather than to answer their things? How do you build AI processes that aren't just contributing to your own obsolescence at the hands of companies who intend to commodify you? That's their intention, to level up. Read From Zero to One by Peter Thiel. It's about he levels up to to zero the rest of us. They operate one order of magnitude above. You don't want to be in bed with them, right? You want to take advantage of these powerful tools without, cutting off your own head in the process. And it's easier, and it's more fun, and your people will like it, and you'll have a good time. And again, imagine just optimize for leisure over growth, right? Leisure over accumulation, and then everything else unwinds in a kind of a fun, cool. And we've got to do it, right? We got to do it, or the people we're paying now will end up to be right, right? We've got to do it, or the world's only trillionaire will be correct. And I'm not going to support that anymore. Okay, and you don't have to either. So thanks a lot. We have time, or we have time? All right, we have time. We have time to talk, says Dan Costa. You guys have thoughts? Do you want to talk about anything? Do you have questions, thoughts, comments? Revolution? Will you join in our crusade?
Yeah, that was great. Do you know Evgeny Morzov?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. He's written about this kind of different way of looking at AI and a different way of technology. I love his idea of why do we have to settle for stochastic parrots when we have stochastic peacocks? When we have AI that would stimulate our brains instead of, as you said, coming back with quick answers. So I'm waiting for his third mega podcast, right? But he's got a lot of the same thoughts.
Oh, yeah. Because a lot of us, because we're old now, we saw the potential of this. We saw even the potential in the early 90s. It was like, oh my gosh, we could really do something. And then, the day that Netscape goes public is the same day that Jerry Garcia dies. And we all go, oh, there it goes, right? It seemed too fitting, right? But we do, this is the great thing about this one. I know it's like, well, if it didn't work last time, will it work this time? Maybe not, but it's like, I got to give it a shot, right? We got to give this one a shot, because otherwise, it's too awful. Yeah.
So, yeah, I've got a question. So for the past couple of years, I've been particularly obsessed with local AI, with AI run on your own laptop, on your own devices, on your own things, with the peer-to-peer possibilities of this technology. And it's a thing that exists, but when you bring it up to businesses or to other people, they're like, oh, I got the ChatGPT. Why do I need this? I got the ChatGPT. How do you break the concept of local, distributed, private, whatever AI through to a culture that's like, I got the ChatGPT?
Right. The way you do that, there's a few ways. One, we're talking about not even how to implement it, but how to convince, right? So the convince is, if you're in the big generic world of the giant chats, then you're basically in the ocean, right? And when you're in the ocean, all the currents are moving, you can't really grow anything. But if you can build a tide pool, when you build a tide pool, you get a weird little ecosystem can start to happen. Stuff can grow, and you can get unique forms. So if you have, a company or an organization, do you want your company or organization to have a unique culture of its own that you can grow, and a unique perspective, some, even in business terms, competitive advantage, but we'll just call it uniqueness? Or do you want to plug into the mainframe that everybody else is in, and now the success of your business is dependent entirely on the size of your contract with the generic AI company? It's going to be, how much are you willing to spend with them in order to outpace the other people that are using them? Right? So it's sort of that. I think it's about teaching them, just about circular economics and community and all. And you end up, if you do it, you end up with a proprietary thing. Business people love proprietary. I heard that word like 4 times today. That IP. Although yes, musicians need their rights and the stuff, but when I'm hearing musicians talk about protecting their IP, it's almost like what musicians do is sacred. It's sacred. It's for a musician to have to worry about the intellectual property of their song is You know, I know, because they'll steal it. Look what they did to James Brown and everyone else. You know, they just steal it anyway if you don't protect them with law and IP, but it's not. I wish we could go the other way and somehow pay musicians to sing, you know, and have the IP be a protected commons of some kind rather than a. But anyway, it's the world. It's the society we live in. You know, there's no more troubadours walking around.
As someone working at a someone working at a marketing startup, you went from alienating to inspiring me in the span of about 5 minutes. So I appreciate you for that. So I'd be curious, what's Rushkoff's practical guide to prioritizing leisure for an IC at one of these million companies sprouting up right now?
You mean how to
prioritize that idea of creating leisure over constant growth or scale it at all costs to align to a mission?
It's funny, I did a talk at, what's it called, Rothman School in Canada, at some business school, and I got up there because I heard the kids talking and they're all so aggressive. And I got up there and the first thing I said was, how many people in this room, how many of you students would be satisfied making $50 million? None of them would raise their hands. And I said, the object of this talk for me is to convince you why it's better to go for $50 million than $1 billion, and why you might be happy or happier with $50 million. It's where to start? The easiest way to get off the exponential growth cycle is the way you take your capital. Obviously, it's you know, are you a slave to your cap sheet? You know, and if you are, you're kind of fucked. You know, you kind of have to refund. The best thing you can do is try to bootstrap the company, take as little as possible. You know, it's that same basic long-term. I know it's the unpopular business idea of using the profits to put back in the company kind of thing, and go that way, and then it becomes a lot easier because then all the company needs to do is reach sustainability, and it's a little bit easier. I mean, there's a whole bunch of you can set it up as no one's going to do this anymore, but set it up as a cooperative, you know, work it as a commons, then you end up with community values sort of dominating, give worker votes, and I mean, worker ownership really helps with that, because then they understand what enough is and what it isn't, and do they really want as a company to get out? Because so many people, this is the problem. If you have employees who are only in the company in order to cash out of the company, then they'll never do that. They'd rather work really hard for 5 or 6 years in order to get to that thing. Well, the other way is to have people in the company believe more in what the company's doing than anything else. They can get a little culty, but on the other hand, it's kind of cool. It's like, we make bike gears, you know, and the bike gear matters more, the quality of the gear. I'm going to stay late and grind it down, and it's that love of craft. Yeah. All right, we're done. Thank you. Thanks a lot. Good luck, everybody.